Before we launch that, may I ask our religious leaders to offer some prayers. Imam C.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين وإن تستفتحوا فقد جاءكم الفتح ونصر من الله وفتح قريب وبشر المؤمنين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاشق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر وسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Shukran. Thank you very much, Imam. Bishop, you have the floor.
Gracious and eternal Father, we continue to thank you because you are a God of mercy, God of love, God of compassion, and God of grace, and a God of forgiveness, and God of healing, and God who repairs all that has been broken down. And so, Lord, we ask that you look kindly upon us as we sit at the TRLC Commission to shift out the truth. The Lord, it will be spoken with compassion, with love, and with the spirit of forgiveness and of reconciliation with one another. We ask that the Holy Spirit will guide the proceedings today, so that everything will augur well to your honor and to your glory, and the benefit be to your children in this nation, the Gambia. This we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen, and thank you very much, Bishop. Council, are we ready with this morning's witness?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you all. We are ready to proceed. Can you please bring the witness? Mr. Osher, kindly swear in the witness.
I, Momodou Lamin Gassama,
I, Momodou Lamin Gassama,
do swear that
do swear that
I will speak the truth,
I will speak the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
You may be seated, please. Good morning, Mr. Gassama. Welcome to the Gambia, and thank you for agreeing to take time off to come and testify before the TRRC. We have already met. It's no longer necessary to do introductions. So today I propose to discuss a few topics with you. The first would be your biographical information, the positions that you held in the military, in particular your role as ADC, the issue of rumors about coup d'etat in the early 1990s and how those issues were handled or dealt with, the events preceding the July 22nd, 1994 coup d'etat, and how Sir Dawda, or the then president, and his party left State House to go to the US frigate that was moored at the Banjul wharves, the events that took place thereafter, refuge in Senegal, departure to the UK, and finally, some of the information you gathered subsequently regarding what happened in the Gambia. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes, I am.
You would agree that that would map out the things that you would want to discuss with the Commission, correct?
Yes, I agree to that. Any subsequent side issues to that as well, relevant, of course.
We would address those as they come up. At the end of your testimony, the Commission would give you the opportunity to say something mainly about institutional reforms and the ideas you have that would help our country move forward and in the right direction. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, could you tell us your full name, please?
My full name is Momodou Lamin Gassama.
And can you briefly provide details of your educational and professional background?
I did my primary education starting from Dankunku, and then completed at Kauru. From Kauru, that was from 1970 to 77 when I came to Muslim high school. Then I did my O-levels at Muslim high school in 1982. From then I proceeded to St. Augustine's High School, where I had my sixth form education.
What did you do after sixth form?
I worked at Treasury as an accounts clerk for 1 year before leaving to enlist into the Army.
Okay, just for completeness of your biographical information, let's say you were born on 17 January 1963.
1963 I was born, yes, at Banjul.
So 70, you went to Dankunku Primary School, and you proceeded then to Kaur, and in 1977 you went to Muslim high school.
Yes.
And 82 you went to St. Augustine's for sixth form.
Yes.
You enrolled, and then what did you do? You said you joined Accountant General's, right?
Yes, I was at the accountant as an accounts clerk at the Accountant General's Department. Yeah.
For how long did you work at the Accountant General's Department?
That was 84 to 85.
And what happened after 85?
On the 14th of August, 1985 is when I went to enlist into the army, the Gambia National Army then.
Prior to enlisting at the National Army, to the Gambia National Army, did you, but let me rephrase the question. Why the National Army?
Well, before the National Army, I tried the police first, and then I realized that the procedure of enlisting, I didn't like the whole idea, that if I cannot get into on my own merit, I don't have to go through any other person. So on the basis of my qualification alone, I should be able to enlist. So when I found that frustrating, I decided, look, service is service, so I'd rather go to the National Army. So where then I was in question as to whom I know to get into the army.
Well, it is part of our responsibility to identify some of the institutional failings that created problems in this country. You mentioned, albeit rather elliptically, that you had frustrations getting into the police. You had to go to the army, where you did not necessarily have to show who you knew to become a soldier. Can you kindly tell us the problems that you faced in your efforts or attempts to join the police?
Well, I had my guardian's daughter, I used to call Mbinko, used to be working there.
Could you say the name again?
They used to call her Mbinko, you know.
And Mr. Gassama, speak a little bit slowly. You've talked fast. So.
My guardian's daughter, whom was responsible for me at Tobacco Road, and she was a police lady at the time, and then she told me, you know, if you want to get into the police, especially to be an officer cadet then, what they used to call an aspirant in the police, so I have to go through her, and she will have to introduce me, you know, to her boss. I think boss was Bolisar then, you know. So I felt uncomfortable with that. You know, we went. I think we had an interview, but then the way I made an assessment, you know, definitely this is not the way to go about the things. It should be mainly based on the merit of my my qualifications, on my certificates alone. Then I decided, you know, this is not for me. You know.
What is your basis for saying or for suggesting that your route to entry was not based solely on your qualifications?
Well, he has to introduce me to him. You know, it's not like a process where you have to go and sit down on exam to sit to an exam, and then based on your exam or where you can be assessed. And they say, okay, you have the right qualifications. You've not only the qualifications, but you have passed the exam. You know, what it can allow you to be enlisted into the police force. So, and I have to wait, you know, response from him before I can proceed further. So while that was happening, I said, no, look, I'm not having this. You know, if I have my A-level results and I was already working, you know, I don't believe I should be subjected to going behind somebody, and then somebody has to decide and wait at the whims, you know, of their own choosing before I could be selected. So I said, no, let me try the army myself. So I went directly to the army.
And what happened when you went to the army?
When I got to the army, I remember Wilson, Benjamin Wilson, then was at the training school, at the selection. Jokingly, when he saw my...
What was his rank at the time?
He was lieutenant, a lieutenant. And then when he saw my certificate, he was like, what are you doing here? You know, jokingly said, people like you are here just to make coup. because like I think it was implying because we are educated enough not to want to come to the army. So, but that was probably just to pull my legs. So, but then there was no issue down there. I just had to pass the medical, and then I was enlisted without any problems whatsoever.
And where did you do your training?
We had at Farafenni, at Yundum Barracks. I had my 4 months basic infantry training course down there at Yundum Barracks.
Which intake?
The 4th intake.
When did you finish your training?
That was 4 months after. Yeah, I started in August, so this will be 4 months after August. Yeah.
So this should be in December,
By
or
December,
January
yeah.
1995.
Yeah,
1985, 86
yeah.
rather. 86 it would be, January 86,
yeah.
thereabout.
Yeah.
And what did you do after that?
I was, in February, 1st of February, I was made an officer cadet by virtue of my, my certificates and, of course, my performance as well as a recruit.
What did you do after that?
I was appointed to be a training instructor. So I was working with the BAT team, waiting for the opportunity to go for further training abroad.
What do you mean by BAT team?
The British Army training team.
And did you eventually go for training?
Yes, I went to Pakistan, where I did my officer's basic training course at OTS, officer's training course in Mangladam, Pakistan.
Do you recall when you finished that training?
I finished the training in 7th of April 1988.
And did you immediately return to the Gambia?
Yes, I returned straight to the Gambia. Upon returning, I was promoted to 2nd lieutenant.
And where were you posted when you returned?
I became a platoon commander briefly for about 1 year. I was with Delta Company, serving under Lai Conte at Farafenni camp. And then after 1 year, I was brought back to the training school again.
Yes, continue.
That was training school from December 88 to 89. I was at training school as a platoon commander at the same time as a training instructor. So I was doing like dual roles.
Yes, continue telling us about your career progression.
Yeah, okay. Like I said, 1990s when I was promoted to full lieutenant, like 2 stars, from a sub-lieutenant to a full lieutenant. Then on the 17th of July, 1990, is when I was appointed to be ADC to the president of the country, Sadauda. That means aide-de-camp.
You were still a lieutenant at this stage?
Yes, I was a full lieutenant at the time of my appointment as ADC.
Aide-de-camp is a French terminology. Could you kindly tell us what it means?
Well, it means just a helper, if you want to directly translate it, but you are like a personal assistant to the president. You help, you are the final port of call if you want to see the president, anybody. You know, from the protocol, you are the kind of usher who will usher people into the president's office and then take them out if need be, you know, by what you establish to a level of communication between you and the president. And of course, like you carry the briefcase and then you ride with the president in the car, you open the doors for him. There are small protocols that goes around the ADC. So there is no set rules or terms of reference how you do your job. So basically you develop based on your own personality and your interaction with the men who work around the presidency. You know, you kind of define the job yourself. But basically your role down there is ceremonial. ceremonial.
The job of ADC, did it traditionally in Gambia carry term limits or not?
Yes, it's a 2-year term limit. After every 2 years, it's been changed. That has been the standard until I came. And then, but somehow the president felt more comfortable working with me, and then he wanted to make it permanent until to his retirement.
So you worked with him from 1990 when
Yes.
you were appointed until when?
Until 1994, on the day of the coup.
Did your rank change at any point in time during this period?
Yes, while I was there, because I didn't have the chance to, sat through the courses if you are in barracks. So they thought that based on my performance down there and that recommendation that I should have a permanent role, that warranted my promotion to the rank of captain. So my command came from my command, army commander, and they recommended me to the promotion of rank of captain.
Kindly make us understand the entourage or the security around the president. Who are they and what institutions they reported to?
The president will have layers of guards. You have the presidential guard commander, which is originally from the Zandam, but later on it became reverted to known as the Tactical Support Group. They provided the bulk of the perimeter of State House security. And then you have plain clothes, which will be the closest close quarter protection.
Before you get to the plain clothes,
okay.
You mentioned the TSG, the first layer protection, the state guards. Who was their commander at the time?
At the time of the coup, it was Kaba Bajo. But before, I had worked with several of them before. I worked with Momodou, and I worked with Turo Jaune, and then I worked with Kaba Bajo as well.
At the time that Kaba Bajo was State Guards commander, who was immediately below him?
Lantom Bontamba was the one below Kaba Bajo.
What were their ranks at the time?
Lieutenants.
Both of them?
Yes.
And who would Kaba Bajo report to?
He reports to his commander, which would have been Pasal Lajang.
Would he be reporting to Pasal Lajang directly, or there is another intermediate commander?
Not that I know of, because like I say, that's their. Well, he'll be reporting to Tro Jaune, who would be in charge of the Bakau Barracks as the headquarters for the TSG. Yeah, but then Turo is also answerable to Pasal Lajang.
And you said the next layer was the plain clothes.
The plain clothes, yeah.
Could you tell us about them?
This comprises of, you will have from the intelligence, NSS then, National Security Service, plain clothes, and some from the Zandam as well, or the TSG.
And who would they report to?
They will report to Kaba Bajo.
Including the intelligence?
Yes, because they're kind of you can call it second men, so he'll be responsible for all of them.
And then the next would be the ADC.
Yeah, the ADC virtually is, I said, it's like you are in no man's land, so you don't have any command responsibility. You don't. I'm responsible to the. I can report to my army commander, but there was no cause to. Virtually when you are down there, you don't have any more contact with anybody. So you have to forge a relationship between you and all these units working around with the presidency.
Okay. As ADC, you were the last port of call before the president.
Yes.
It meant you had to be wherever he was
Yes.
during his official duties, correct?
Yes.
Did you have to travel with him?
Yes, I have to travel with him wherever he goes.
In 1994, or in the years before 1994, we have evidence that there were lots of rumors of coup d'etat.
Yes.
Do you know anything about that?
Yes, I remember it was mid the farmer store. Sorry.
Could you say again?
On the mid the farmer store, before, regarding Yajame in particular, because I just want to, because the whole thing surrounded around him. He was then at State House, and there was rumors that he was corresponding with Kukwe Sambasanyang, the one who staged the 1981 coup. I think based on those rumors, or whether it was substantial enough, at least it was to them, that he was removed from the State House and sent back to the military police unit of the Tactical Support Group. But then still, he was able to join us, when we are going on Meet the Farmer store, as his role would be responsible for vehicle movement or parking cars, something to that effect. So he joined this particular tour we were going around the country. Before we set off, there was rumors that somebody was going to make an attempt on the life of the president, and then that he was a suspect. So my attitude was...
Who gave you that information?
Well, I would get it normally from the Presidential Guard commander, or then we had Daba Marina as well, who was with the plain clothes. So sometimes he confides with me about any kind of potential threat information he gets. So that was the situation, and then, because like I said before, that you have so many false rumors here and there, you don't take them seriously. But this one, in particular, it was hotly rumored. It was taken seriously.
Do you recall the year of the Meet the Farmer store you're talking about?
I think this was 92. 92. I'm not quite sure, but I think 92.
During this time, in which force did Yaya Jamo belong to?
He was at the Zanda, well, the TSG headquarters then back. Yeah, he has already been removed from State House.
Okay, and then do you know how long after his removal from State House did this event take place?
I wouldn't be able to say. It's a long time ago.
So, in spite of his removal from State House, because of the allegation that he was corresponding with Kukoi, and then there were suspicions that during the Meet the Farmer store, he was going to make an attempt on the life of the president. It was still decided...
He was a potential suspect.
A potential suspect.
Suspect, yes.
In spite of all that, it was decided that he went on the tour.
Yeah, he went on the tour anyway with his military police unit. Yeah.
And then what happened during the tour?
And then I think while we were at Sapo, of course, I wasn't aware at the time. I understand this, one of our drivers, a very nice gentleman we used to call Boyba. He is a driver for one of the escort vehicles. And then he dropped his pistol, I understand, whether he was trying to draw or whatever, but it dropped on the floor.
What do you mean by whether he was trying to draw or whatever?
As you're supposed to take it out, try to shoot somebody, of course, your pistol is always in the holster. It should be like strapped and locked in there. But somehow, whatever happened, they said he dropped this now secondary information to me, that he dropped his pistol on the floor, and then everybody's focus, changed to him, that he was probably the potential assassin everybody's been talking about. So this went on to Basse. Eyes were in, people were hotly rumored, but for me, around the presidency, I never had any news about it, until we went to Sapo. Still, I didn't hear anything. The only thing I had while we were with the president was somebody shot himself. So I came how, and then they started explaining. He came in, washed his car clean, got into the Pajero and took a gun and then shot himself. This was a Sapo, committed suicide. So when I asked, and I was told that probably he felt pressured, that all eyes were on him, that this rumors was going around that he is the person who was going to make an attempt on the life of the president. So people have different levels of stress, and he couldn't handle the stress. So he found it's the only way to end it. So he went on inside the Pajero, locked the door. Apparently after having breakfast with his commander, Trojaune, didn't say anything. There was no inkling that he was going to do this. So he ended up his life, committed suicide.
What happened after that?
Well, from then it became the responsibility of their command. They handled the rest, so we continued on our tour.
Yeah. And how about Yaya Jammeh?
Yaya, towards the end of the tour, like I said, when these rumors initially came out, I kept an eye on him. Mostly just to observe his movement.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Because knowing when I had this information that, of course, he could be a potential suspect for me, I want to see, always be at the vantage point where I can keep an eye on him, so that he will notice that I'm observing him. So when we reached at Mansa Konko, he came to me. He said, "Gassama, you are a chameleon." I said, "What do you mean?" He laughed. And then he went away because he noticed that throughout the entire tour, I had kept my eyes on him. I will leave the guardian of the president. It's not my responsibility. You have bodyguards around. I'm down there at ceremony, but I said, okay, I can add to my experience to be able to assess the situation, to the level of threat. If he's become a threat, then I can communicate to the guard commander. Because for me, my suspicion was not necessarily on Ba, but basically him. So I wasn't surprised that he came to me and straight away and told me, you are a chameleon. Probably thinking that, I've been very, disguised in the way I've been observing him.
How about the Presidential Guard commander? Were there any suspicions about him?
If there was any, it wasn't communicated to me. It wasn't. But I passed this, had a discussion with the commander that this would be the last time he should be on the tour. If he is of a level of threat, I can see the rationale, allowing him to be on tour again. Okay, just to kind of part in a way so that he wouldn't be suspicious with me. He came to me himself, and then he said Tobaski is coming, and he's broke. He wants us to help him with a ram. Then I called Jere Sanyang, who was the head of the household. He's the brother of the late Paramount Chief, Demba Sanyang. So he went to the Sadaras Garden, where he was given a ram for his Tobaski.
How about other incidents or other rumors of coup plots? Did you have a situation wherein a Presidential Guard commander was also suspected of wanting to make an attempt on the life of the president?
Yeah, allegedly, yes. We left, normally when we are traveling, nobody in our entourage travels with a weapon. Yeah, you're not allowed to travel with whatsoever, because when you go to a country, probably in West Africa we'll go with a weapon, but we hand them over on arrival, but not to Europe or anywhere else abroad. We don't travel with any weapons, because your security is within the responsibility of your host country. Until you leave, if you go to another country, they're responsible. So there was absolutely no need for anybody to travel with weapons. But on this particular occasion, I wasn't aware that the Presidential Guard commander then had weapons on him, tucked in his socks. So who alerted the British, I don't know, but somehow the information got from here. And then on arrival at Gatwick Airport, that he was searched, and then they found a pistol tucked in his socks. So he was arrested down there and then detained.
You were always or frequently around Sir Dawda. Do you know whether he had information about all these rumors of coup?
He, of course, he had so many of them. We used to say, if he listens to people, he will go mad. That's what he said, because every now and then somebody will come with a rumors of a coup, it will be some marabout, said this and that, and he will say, look, if I listen to this, he's somebody, he believes in faith. He said, if it's meant to happen, it will happen. And he will say it happens in Nigeria all the time anyway. So you cannot come and tell him there's rumors of coup unless you bring concrete evidence. He's the type of personality you cannot just, he doesn't engage in frivolous tittle-tattle. You have to come, with a cast iron information. If you say X deals with this, I have to bring evidence of it to him. Then he will act on those, but not just based on somebody having some supernatural powers where he can see the future and say this is going to happen. No, he will not listen to you. He will just say, if you listen to that, he will go mad.
At this time, in the early 90s, could you tell us more about the security around State House?
At the early 90s, well, the security, as I found it, it's a guarding duty. When it became a question of whether it was adequate, that question arose following the first demonstration of soldiers, and then how they responded, and then all of a sudden there was this realization that at least they felt at the time they didn't have enough arms to defend. That's from the guard commander, that's Turo Jaune.
Who is they?
Turo Jaune made that request then to Momodou that he needed more weapons if the guards should be able to mount any kind of form of resistance, should there be problem directed towards the State House. But then during the process also, some guards found their way to me and they said, look, we need extra training. If you can help us, because we are not trained enough to handle if any situation should come our way. We are not proficient enough to defend this particular, the State House, because structurally, the State House is not a fort that is meant to stand a skirmish. In peacetime, when you have guards down there, you can normal guard duties stop ordinary people. But if it's an assault, you won't be able to defend. I think that's what these guards were actually implying. So my suggestion then was, one, twofold. Pick up your brightest soldiers, if you can send them on training, and when they come, they can impart those training to the men you have. And as a temporary measure, why not we invite the army in to come and have some defensive structures within the State House, like based on my knowledge from what I got from Pakistan, that you can have bunkers that can even stop a battalion, if it is properly constructed. So I wanted some 3 or 4 of that kind within the State House complex as a line of defense, so that we can invite the army to help in that regard. But then, following a National Security Council meeting, this idea was put to the Army Commander, then the acting Army Commander, Momodou was the acting Army Commander at the time. So the National Security Advisor, as he narrated to me, because I was in at the sitting, because it's normally service heads that will be at that meeting, and they said, why do you want to protect State House? He said, well, they found it necessary. And what he was saying that if we want to take State House, we can take State House anytime.
Who said that?
He said Momodou told him that. He was our acting Army Commander. So when he called me, he said, had it been in Nigeria, you make such a remark, it's treason. And you could even be hanged for it. because this is your seat of power. You want to improve the security. Why should somebody question, that kind of trying to protect the executive? So I think that led to partly him being removed from his post.
Who being removed from his post?
From Momodou.
Were your recommendations acted upon?
No, they were not acted upon. They were not acted upon.
Do you know whether the security advisor supported your recommendations?
He did, and I didn't only stop that actually, and I called also the Pastor Lajang. Given that, like I said, my position being, I call it no man's land, so I'm trying to do the best I can and kind of foster kind of cohesion within the services to see how best they can both, the two services of the TSG and the Army can come together and then not only protect the State House, but the security of the country. So I made this suggestion to the IG. I said, why not, being a small country like us, pool our resources together and have a system whereby we can train both the Army and the TSG together, like in Farafenye, on completion of their training, and then they can be redeployed back to their units. In this way, there'll be no sense of insecurity, as it was portrayed to me by the guards. Because there was this fear that if should there be any problem, then they don't think they have the necessary training, like fighting in built-up areas, what we call FIBUA in the Army. They have to have, they have to be proficient in training, exercising enough to be confident enough to be able to carry out such an exercise. So they didn't have any such knowledge. For them, it's only they are very good in firing, but nobody's bulletproof. This whole idea of Jambaria doesn't. As a training instructor, we try to get that out of the Army's head. We just apply what you've been taught. So you can see where being realistic, the guards themselves realize that they are really short in this particular department. So as a way of allaying that fear, and then I suggested this thing to Pastor Lajang. And he said, well, Gassama is a good idea, but I cannot see it happening in the next 10 years. And that was it. That was that.
Did you make these suggestions to Sadauda?
No, I wouldn't make unless it's something of, there's something eminent that I know of, either to deal with his own person, or even if maybe politically once or twice, or security-wise, I wouldn't go to Sadara for that. I'd rather go to the National Security Advisor, or I make a suggestion to the Secretary General.
At this time, in the early 90s, 92, 93, 94, there were some changes in the Army, in the security forces in general, Gendarmerie and Army. Can you tell us about it?
I think by the end of the Confederation, there was, I understand it was the British technical advisor who said the idea of gendarme is something that is not in the British culture. So they recommended amalgamating the gendarme into the police. And then the military wing, the military police wing was amalgamated to the Army, because they thought, it's not a British tradition. And then, not that the British haven't tried it, well, this is my own perspective, before. They've tried this idea of gendarme, I remember 1917 to 1921 in Lebanon, and they found it very ineffective in times of crisis. So until they had to deploy the black tanks from Ireland. So I'm just trying to understand why they say it's not a British tradition. So they would rather you have an armed police unit like they have it in the UK, and then you have the Army, completely different. So they recommended this amalgamation of the tactical support group, part of them into the Army, part of them into the police.
Did the British continue to remain with the Army in the Gambia?
I think they were here up to the time I think NATAC came. That's the Nigerian Army Tactical Assistance Group. When they came in, and then they found themselves, you know, or whatever the reason. To be quite honest, I don't know the reason why they ran up their tenure here. But I understand the government wanted them to stay. You know, but then they said they can't since that's another force down there, so they left.
And the Nigerian contingent, who was their leader?
It was Brigadier General Ibrahim Dada, who was their leader, personally appointed by General Babangida tenure to bring. He was the one who came as head of the NATAC contingent in the Gambia.
Tell us, if you know, what was the impact of the Nigerian presence in the Gambia?
I think their impact was more on the organizational part of the army, restructuring to have a proper headquarters, which we didn't have before. And then, as to the nitty-gritties of what was happening in the camp, because I wasn't at the camp at the time, I was more at State House, even though I had dealings with the General Dada when he was working with on the terms and conditions of service. You know, then he will consult me. You know, I would say I've kind of become a lobbyist for the army in that sense. You know, so if I remember until at one time, you know, Secretary General told me you are very biased towards the army. Well, naturally, if the army wants something that's good for the army, you know, I will stand up for the army. While he was so I had a very good relationship with him in that regard, while he was trying to bring some favorable terms and conditions for the soldiers.
That must have been something that was beneficial. But as far as you know, did the presence of the Nigerians have any negative effects in the army?
Not professionally, but what I tend to get, the vibes I tend to get is the kind of, if you can call it jealousy. And I'm not sure whether to what extent this affected the officers, but the lifestyle, and then they paid from Nigeria. Average soldier maybe earning thousands of dollars, or who knows, and Dada himself being the paymaster, will collect their money from Dakar and come and pay them, because so they were well paid and well looked after. So naturally, this will create jealousy within the ranks of the army. But I'm not sure whether this affected their professional relationship, you know, what they were doing in the army then, in terms of their restructuring. And then I wasn't aware of any training, substantive training at that level.
At around this time, did you at State House, did you realize or did you come to notice any form of dissatisfactions or grievances among the soldiers in the barracks?
Not necessarily, but I had a concern, and my concern was being from a military country. I made this suggestion that Nigeria can have a change of government anytime, and that change of government can pull all their troops, and then like the Confederation, how it ended, and then a huge vacuum was created. It's about time we select the Nigerian training team goes into advisory role, you know, and our own Gambian commanders take the command role, command position, and then that way, even if anything happens, yeah, at least they are well groomed into, because our army is still fairly young, you know, by any standards, you know, so we should be mindful of that change to happen in Nigeria. So I think a decision was made. Then the problem was who should be appointed to command the army. So they came down to the idea of if they can select the brightest ones within the senior cadre of officers we had, and then the brightest of them will be selected. You know, after naturally you just go for whoever was the most senior. And it would have been like Chris Davis, or, you know. But then they said no, let's take the down the line. That's when Lai Conte and then Sheikh Omar Faye were selected to go on course to be one of them, or later on Babukar Jatta. Within the three of them, whoever excels in their field would be nominated to command the army.
But in the meantime, while these people were being sent for training, who commanded the army?
Dada was still in command of the army up to his recall. I think it was sometime in 1994. I think we were at Mandela's inauguration, I think, when we first got wind of Lawan Gwadebe coming to Gambia as the next contingent commander. I think the president was told that. So somehow this person was very concerned about the personality that was Lawan Gwadebe, and that he got a reputation for being involved in virtually every coup in Nigeria, and that we should resist his coming at all costs. But then the president was like, this is a friendly gesture from a brotherly country. He cannot just say no to, if they want to change the command whose time is due to be recalled back, which was General Dada, to be replaced by Colonel Lawan Gwadebe.
So it's your suggestion that Sir Dawda accepted that change, is that
yes,
right?
Yes, he accepted that change.
Did that change actually take effect?
Before the change, Dada wasn't happy with that. He tried to lobby me. He came to me. Of course, I was sympathetic to his views because I don't know what the Memorandum of Understanding stated, but he kept on harping on this idea. It is unconstitutional, the manner in which he was recalled back, and that it is a disrespect to the sovereignty of the country and the Gambia. And he added that they messed up Nigeria already. He made this one, I remember, particular. And now they want to call him back. So he wants no part of it, that is going to Nigeria. So in other words, he was either by hook or crook hell-bent on staying here. He doesn't want to go.
Did he accept his replacement?
He didn't accept that request to go back. So he stayed here.
And what happened to the position of commander of the army?
And Colonel Akoji was then the acting commander, awaiting the arrival of Colonel Lawan Gwadebe.
Yeah. Was Akoji formally given the responsibility of commander of the army?
Not necessarily, to my knowledge, as far as coming from the presidency. This would have taken effect naturally from the army ranks. If the commander is not there, the second in command will take over, or the third in command will take over. But in this particular occasion, I think Akoji was the third in command. Onobi was the second in command, I think, but then he was away. So Akoji has to assume command until Lawan Gwadebe came.
Kindly elucidate more on this issue of, on this particular situation. What did that situation mean for the command structure of the army?
Well, what do you mean exactly for the command structure of the army? Because it's not like it's with commanderless. As far as the Gambian side is concerned, we had our most senior officers away on course. And then you can say it's a vacuum, but then there's normally the third in command took over, so you cannot say it's completely commandless. But then the one who is meant to come hasn't taken over. The one who was recalled refused to go back. So we are kind of in that state of limbo.
Did that have any negative effect on the army?
Well, it will have effect on the army. Actually, it will have.
So this situation persisted until 21st July 1994, correct?
Yes.
And at this time, where were you?
I traveled with the president before. Yeah, I traveled with the president in 1994 before July. I think it was meant to go to Tunisia. I remember at the particular trip, I must have stayed behind and in London because I got malaria, severe malaria. I think they went without me to Tunisia and they came back because I had a 2 weeks break. So we had a break in London, and then before he came back. So and I came back with him.
And while you were in London, did you hear anything about disturbances in the army?
I remember Kaba Bajo mentioning, like I said, not necessarily that there would be the rumors of soldiers demonstrating. And then the way he put it was, in Mandinka, Alanyin Kulubalo left a mama Nakoteke, indicating that this.
Could you say that a bit slowly?
Coming Alanyin Kulubalo, that this unruly.
These rudeness people, they want to do
in other words, he means that these unruly soldiers are about to make a demonstration again, but the situation is under control. Because I could notice the flurry of communication, whispering. Between either him and probably Lantombo. I don't know, he was talking to the other end, but I'll assume it's his second in command, Lantombo. And then on the other side, we had Bakari Dabo, who was from the NSS, who was also communicating probably with Keba Sise, his boss.
Let's clarify this. There was a Bakari Dabo at the NSS, National Security Service.
Yes, it was.
Different from the Bakari Dabo who was then
Yeah.
Minister of Finance.
Yes.
Okay, good. So, and what happened that day? This was 20 July or 21st July 1994. Did this information filter to Sadauda as far as you know?
At no point was I aware of any briefing given to Sadauda. And then I said that because naturally, by my role, even if we are there on holidays, if they want to see the president, they will let me know. And I'll inform him, that has always been the protocol. I will inform him that the head of the guard wants to talk to you. If it's on the guard and security, I could be present. Most of the time I will be. But at this particular, on the 22nd, on the eve, I wasn't aware of any briefing while we are at Haywards Heath in London, in the UK.